mean, the powers that we have as humans, let alone as like a group of people with a deep-rooted culture, sometimes we sell ourselves short or become mentally complacent. If we make that jump, we become unstoppable.
Welcome back to the Power Perception Podcast. I'm very honored to have our guest today, the one and only Kite Afiaki. Thank you so very much for joining us today. So, with that being said, man, all my guests who come on, I give them an opportunity to, share their own views. But I think the first thing I always ask everyone playing the sport of football, knowing that you are a head coach, or not the head coach, so one of the positional coaches.
I don't want none of that stress.
At Weber State is, when is the first time you got playing the sport of football?
Man, I think back in '96, I moved from Tonga. I was 15 years old. Mm-hmm. I was in ninth grade, but I wasn't aware that my ninth graders, my age, were playing Little League. I came straight from Tonga, signed up, and it was playing with the sophomores. So they're a year ahead. I've never played football before. The hip pads, you know how you got the skinny thing at the bottom, was facing up. 5 straight from Tonga, man. But the most dominant dude that was playing on our team was Chris Alo.
Wow.
And he was a backer, and he blasted everybody. He's the first one that comes to mind. And he became one of my best friends, but that dude was just dominating everybody. Speed, power, run around you, run through you. It was him. And I don't remember the specific, but it's practice. He got me in practice. But I think of him when you ask that question.
I kind of want to have everyone share their story in terms of getting got. I think a big, role when it comes to Polynesian culture, or a huge thing we always focus on, is humility, right? And so, if one thing I know that football teaches is you will get humbled by anybody if you take a play off.
Straight up. That was humbling to me. I wasn't that good growing up in Tonga. I wasn't that good. I had an older brother, Willie, who played in the senior team for Atere. That's varsity. And that was the guy. I was like, man, that was impressive, because my brother walked off the street. He was here in America for a year, came back, and he told me and my brother, I'm going to start for the Atere rugby team. Me and my brother last year laughing you're going to get rocked. But then I remember watching him play grade 5, which is JV, against Toloa, and they won the Shield. That was the most intense game I've ever seen in my life. There was a big old fight between Toloa and Liahona. And Atere, we were there. But that incident, the pregame, Toloa attacks Liahona, and it was like Braveheart. They ran all the way across the field in the Tonga High field. You remember where Tonga High is, but it's the GPS Nuku'alofa.
Yeah.
Behind that is the rugby field.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, scariest moment of life. This was '93. I'm, 11, 12 years old? But to see my brother, see that fight, I was traumatized. But you erase that and watch my brother accomplish his goal from playing JV and then starting in JV, starting in varsity. That inspired me. That started the spark, man, if he can do it, I can do it.
Awesome, man. So I think the question that comes to mind now is, for those of the people who do know you, you came from Tonga. And talk about kind of your transition, growing up in Tonga, coming to the States, and then getting into the game of football, I guess.
Man, first of all, I'd be forever in debt to my parents. I grew up in Tonga for the first 15 years of my life. I think I came to America twice before moving here in '96. Excuse me. I think first trip was probably 5. I just remember being in awe. Oh my gosh, this is America. Because we look Afrikasi, but we're 100%. Mm-hmm. So it was always Masi, but I was straight fob, My second trip was when I was 8 to come for my brother Danny's wedding. And I was still my gosh, this is the promised land for real. Fast forward to '96, I've been 3 years at Atere. I moved as a 15-year-old. And when we moved, I was so excited, but then the culture shock hit. I went to play football, that's a culture shock. like the insecurities of like, oh man, I want to make friends. You know, this is some of the Tongan kids you're watching, and I'm like, whoa. Halo Tingata's older brother, Snake. I was the same age with him, 9th grade. And we bonded right off the bat. But he was bigger, he was faster, he was powerful. And I'm watching Junior like, dude, he's a dude. You know, but after, when school started, it was nerve-wracking, man. I came from Matere, and it was military style. Straight military, all boys. Come here, all of a sudden I'm going to school with girls. I'm like, oh man, this is fun. I go to school with girls, you know, and then you see Mikos, you see, you know, Uri-Uris, Polynesians. You're like, this is beautiful, you know, and then getting straight A's my first semester, because all I thought was, you got to go to class. If not, I'm going to get beat up. I remember we were sitting on the table and catching our grades after the first semester. My sister's grades were bad. Not trying to blast my sister Finau, but yeah, her grades were bad. But she was sloughing. I went straight to class. I got straight A's. And after, you know, Pop sat us down, watching everything, he said, you know, you need to pay attention, Finau, or you're not going to live the dream. I brought you here for a bigger dream, and you're over here just messing around. Right when Pops left, I asked her, like, what do you do? It's like, dude, you don't even have to go to class. Oh, game over. Started sloughing. That's kind of the journey of coming here, not navigating. My parents both went to school here in the States, but I wasn't able to navigate it. I was new, I was nervous. It's a new environment, and I just started being a follower. I just followed everyone else.
Man, we had one of my friends from Tonga who came and lived with us, Timani Mamaloa, kid from Nautoka. And I remember for him, like in terms of organization and like the rules and laws that are set here in America was something he struggled with heavily. And he explained to me one time, like, you know, when I went to school at Atere, like when you didn't do something right, your discipline was, you know, you got hit at school. Yeah. And in a bad way.
Don't say hit, it was discipline.
But like
discipline.
in a very bad way. And he would tell me, he's like, and it conditioned you to being like a lot of the kids who come out with me, he was telling me, he's like, it sucks because when they go into the real world outside of Tonga, like when they're not getting hit for some reason, they don't see it as like, oh, I don't need to follow these rules. And for a lot of our, you know, kids who come straight from the islands, some of them still hold on to that mentality.
Let me tell you, Langi, for 3 years at Atere, I sloughed one time.
Wow.
I sloughed one time in 3 years. Like, but by the time it was my third year, right? Because it's 7th, 8th grade, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. All in one. There's no middle school. After 6th grade, I'm going straight. You're feeding your kids straight to the slaughter. And it's real. Bullying is real. I didn't know that was called bullying. It was a rite of passage, right? You go in, the 8th graders bully the 7th graders. 9 messes with 8, you know. But my brother Lassie was there, but nobody messed with me. Lassie was a year ahead of me. He paved the way. By the time I came in, he was like, nah, you're not going to mess with me. That's my baby brother. But I still had to fight and make my own way. But it went back to discipline. We were conditioned. 7th grade, right? I'm sitting there. You got a dude that's prefects. They're juniors and seniors. They would walk past your classroom. Nobody's making noise. He just peeps in and says, class fin. You say 1A, because my teacher is Mrs. Haveaki. Then he'd be like, okay. We didn't know. Right after that, we all went for lunch. The cafeteria was all one. All 800 students sitting on the floor. If it was Monday, it's Laise. If it's Tuesday, you know, Suposipi, whatever. But the first conditioning of breaking it down like a military style, call up the whole 7th grade. Modolu, o kalas fen na pau e honi, 1A. Magape ka ato gyolunga, magape. Laine ta.
Oh, man.
I go fusia ke va teke, right? It's this big because you use it to deck the windows.
Yeah.
If I didn't mohe, we get ha luva or nothing, it's windows like that. You got to push up. Makape ke laine ta hagato. And that big stick, it doesn't hurt. But you've never been hit by a stick like that. But in line, you could tell the kids that were not disciplined at home, right? They're from a good home. I was from a great home, but we got disciplined. So in my mind, I'm conditioning myself like, I'll take it. Taco, first time you hit, boom, it's just a dead butt. But they're conditioning your brain. They're breaking you down, and then they build you back up. That's atere for you. 3 years, it made a man of me, straight up. And your cousin would vouch for that too. That's why atere in Tolo, we clash. They do that at Tolo, we do that at atere. Straight up.
Man, I think in terms of discipline, there's such pride that holds with those who attended atere in Tolo. And I have so many like uncles and cousins, back from Tonga. Like when I see them, like anyone mentions their school, it's like pride that's uncomparable to anything.
Straight up, they'll tell you in the valley. Mm-hmm. When I go to West Valley and it's all the fobs, they know. I say, "Spukei magilan mataina," and they say, "Whoa, atere kataki." I see a Toloa dude, man, maui mavutama pulua dai mini. It's just. Man, that's the gangs in Tonga. Mm-hmm. And I will never forget that. I'm bringing it up, but I'm hitting them up. But it's like, this is where I'm from. It's red. It's not Tofoa where I live. It's not Hapai where my dad's from. It's not Vavau. It's atere. Straight up. You know how it is. You went on a mission there.
Mm-hmm. And so I kind of want to, use that to segue into, there's that connection where that was kind of, Tonga's way of gang life. You come to America where you're exposed to a whole new way of gang life per se in the early 90s. What was your introduction to that life?
Jeez. We went to watch rugby, summer 96. We moved here. My cousin took us and we just sit in the back of the truck. It's just me and my brother Lassie. It was in the back. It was Glendale Middle School. So you got the fields in the back, but you park in the front by the school. Mm-hmm. We're sitting in the back, and some kids from Glendale walk by. This is my first time seeing the khakis, what do you call those shoes? The
Chuck Taylors?
No, the Chucks and the other one, the Cortez.
Yeah.
Blue shirt to match your blue shoes. And I'm in awe. Like, Lassie, man, this fool's already mad dogging them. Just watching them. And they're watching him too. They're probably 5 yards, 10 yards from the truck. And we're sitting in the bed of the truck, and they're just mad dog. Lassie's like, "Koya, aidawa." They didn't see nothing because the Tongan was fluent. They knew, tamanemi Tonga, mahalo pote fuhu. Yes, he's right. My brother was a monster because he did that in Tonga. Came here, you didn't have to join the gang. That's what he taught me. You don't have to join the gang, but if they look at you, you handle your business. But my parents had no idea that we were about it. Someone hit us up, it ain't going down. Well, it is going down, but we didn't walk away. That was my first exposure in Glendale, seeing it like that.
Yeah, I think it's kind of crazy, especially now. It's died down a lot.
Died down
compared to
96.
Yeah.
Was the high. I don't know before that. All I know is 96. Every weekend. You guys are in Texas. You guys are probably messing with Mikos, Uriuris, but they're scared of you guys.
Yeah.
Utah, it's Tongans on Tongans. It's Samoans on Samoans, but we moved here, and my first experience of Tongans and Samoans was at West High. West High, man, I'm telling you, and that's why it goes into the neighborhood I'm from, Rose Park. I didn't live there. My grandparents lived in the avenues. Where we go by Temple Square.
Yeah.
We go up and we're up there. So everyone assumed we had money. We didn't have money. It's my grandparents' house. But who I associated with was the hood. I went to Rose Park to hang out there to see it, to see the dream. But my brother told me straight up, you be a part of Rose Park, they die. So I never got jumped into Rose Park. But I'm proud to be from there. Very proud.
For a lot of the kids, you look back and you're like, man, it's like we lost a lot of great talent to that life.
You don't
You know
want
what
to
I
get me started, man.
It's like, if you had any advice, being a coach now, seeing kids come up, what would you say to them in terms of, choose the right, don't choose that path?
Don't worry about the streets. Like, I had so many friends fall into that. Like, people know about Haloti Ngata, but how about Finau Ngata, though? Right? Mom and dad are from Rose Park. Haloti's from Rose Park. Tony Finau, all these guys, right? But the older brother Finau went to live in L.A. with their auntie or uncle, their family, navigated L.A. and became like MVP over there. Came back for his senior year, got into too much trouble and didn't even play the game. But as a youngster, I was a sophomore, he was a senior, I would run across the street. And people know in Rose Park, you run across from the youngsters on 3rd West and run across to the main field. I just went to sit and watch Finau Ngata. I got to tell myself, like, if that's what it looks like to be the best, I want to be him. And he was the best. Because people know about Haloti, about Finau, about Snake, about Vili. They paved the way for the baby. But you didn't see what came before. So like my advice, stay away from the streets. Those guys want to be you. But it's so enticing because you think they got this, they got that. They don't have money. Unless you're really drug dealing. They don't have it. But long money. Get good grades. Play the game because talent comes easy. And then go play football. Utah, BYU, but it ain't all of them. How about us at Weber? How about SUU? How about Idaho State? Your talent can put you anywhere. But it doesn't matter where you go. You go, but don't fall for that. Because at the end of the day, those guys go to prison. We played to get to the NFL. But not everyone makes it. You might as well fall and get your degree and start a good life.
Man, just seeing where your journey has taken you and, all the knowledge you've gained over the years. For everyone, like the saying goes, it takes a village to raise a child. So for you, like, who are those mentors in terms of football, life, just in general?
First guy that I can think of, Coach Steve Kaufusi. Like the first Tongan to be in that position as a full-time college coach. Second one I can think of is one of my favorite mentors, Kalan Stake. The man. The man to mentor all of us to say, like, Kalani, man, what should I do? You call him, he tells you, right? So he passed that on to me, I got to pass it on to the next guy. Coach Anderson. He was my position coach. Now he's a head coach at at Utah State. But then my mentor now, everything I know is because of head coach Jay Hill. Everything I know, it's him. I talk like him, I coach like him. I'm a little wild, but that's me. I coach my own personality. But I've picked from each one, molded into who I am. And then you counter back to my parents, my siblings, my best friends, even the OGs from the neighborhood. That's me. Because when I make it, that's everybody. That's everybody.
Man, I think the biggest thing about our Polynesian culture that I've always been like very proud of is we've always been able to take care of our own, right? So when we go from one level to another, like no matter what that was, talk about your transition. You played in high school and then you went to go on and play in college. What was that experience like for you in terms of the transitioning?
My story is unique, I met the love of my life in high school. Like, fell in love. I fell head over heels. I already knew, like, man, 2 of my brothers went on missions. That was the expectation, going on mission. I started to sway away, met my girlfriend, who's my wife now. By the way, I got to shout her out. That's my boss. That's my comfort zone. That's my mentor, my eternal companion, but all in one, right? So I meet her, and I knew from day one that I was going to marry her. But the sacrifice to not go on a mission, that's what I took. I knew the road was going to be hard. And we went down there, and it was my mom's warning me, son, your mission. I said, I know, Mom. I know, My dad kind of just stayed back, but she gets pregnant. I knew the summer of my senior year. I didn't tell my parents till Thanksgiving Eve.
Wow.
Man, I'd talk to her every night, and she'd ask me, man, can you tell your parents? Like, my mom's saying you're ashamed of this and stuff. I said, nah, I just can't. Like, I could not tell my mom that I couldn't go on a mission. I couldn't tell my dad that, Dad, I can't go, So I finally grew the courage to do it. And my mom didn't have to say anything. The tears, oh man, that broke my heart. My dad shook me down. You ain't never had a job, all that stuff. And I'm like, man, I know, I'm hearing it all. But long story short, I get an offer to Weber State. That's where I'm at right now. I signed it, I took it, because I'm telling my wife, hey, I have a dream. But when we were dating, I told her, man, I want to go on a mission. I'm getting college ball, I'm getting my degree. That's why she fell in love with me. It was like, dude, I'm going to get stuff. But I'm like, dude, you seem cool, let me take you with me. But we get married before graduation. May, I graduated in June, had my first daughter, Finau. And she's on a mission right now. So that's the journey of to start, that's back, right? But I take the scholarship, I go a year and a half at Weber, and I'm like, man, this is hard, man. I went for 2 days. I came back and I told the coach right at the end of 2 days, I can't do this. My priorities is my wife and kid. I need to go back to Salt Lake and take care of my family. He said, okay, go ahead, man, you're right. Took the semester off. Me and my wife go find a job. She finds FedEx. It's way better paid than me at the warehouse. I stay home. I'm 18 years old. My daughter's only a couple months. That experience in itself changed my life. I had to drop off my wife at 6, come back home, change diapers, give her a bottle. The first day it happened, shower, bottle, everything my wife told me to do. Change the diaper. And you're a father, but this is 18 years old. So I change her and I put her on the bed and she's crying. I close the door and I put her on the bed, grab the cordless phone, call my mom. She doesn't answer. I just sat in the closet like this. Oh man, did I really know this was gonna be this hard? No. But it helped mold me into who I am today. You want to make a baby, you better be man. You better be a man to take care of it. So I go back to school in January. I signed a half scholarship to play. I didn't understand. But by the time I go back in January, they gave me a full scholarship because of how good I did in August. Mm-hmm. But play for a year, I didn't like it. I wasn't having fun. I had a couple buddies that we signed with in high school, but they left on a mission. But I had my buddy David Takafoa from Maui. He was my older brother. Take me out to eat, taugie, just watching over me. But at the end of the day, I wasn't having fun. I left that scholarship, moved back home. I didn't want it, so that's a very hard transition. But add on being a father, being a husband, 18 years old, all that stress, I folded the first time around, but I came back.
Man, I know I can speak for you when I say this, there's no greater motivation until you have a child, you know what I mean? In terms of this podcast, I was just man, I just felt like I was stuck, you know what I mean? And whatever I'm doing in life, it didn't really amount to anything. And so I looked over my wife and I was like, I've been wanting to be in sports, commentating sports, something's just telling Polynesian sports stories for the longest time. And I went through a full year just trying stuff. And then she looked at me one day and she's like, what are you doing? What do you mean? It's you're trying all these things that make a lot of money. He's like, but you're not trying the thing that you're most passionate about, which is, sports and your people. It's combine them together and just chase it. And then I was just dang. It's well, leave it to the person who knows me best to kind of put me on the right path.
But that's a message right there, Lang.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm going to ask you, like, it's not asking you. It's like, that's the message to the next generation. If you're going out with somebody right now, like, if your dreams are her dreams and she's pushing you hard, hold on to her. Treat her like gold. Like, this was my first serious girlfriend. But besides that, like, the whole 16-year-old thing in the church, nah, I was dating in Tonga, man. You know, like, Tonga, my Caleb go. Tonga, like,
Yeah.
16-year-olds and things. I was dating probably 11, 12 years old, right? Not doing anything crazy, but I met my wife and I knew. And then I met her mom. It sealed the deal. Like, I want my wife to be like the mom. That's why. But at the end of the day, it's like, yes, if your other half is not supporting you, we won't make it, man. Like, if you're the driving forklifts, be the best. Like, kill it. And then be a foreman. And then move on, like, be the best at whatever you do. But when we go home, like, we just need that soothing comfort voice from our wife. Like, I know I'm not that good, but just tell me. Like, I'm good. Man, Kilo Haki might be out, eh?
Yeah.
Haki might be out, but I'm going to do it. Just prepping myself like, man, I'm going to run through that wall. But I'm scared. But my wife's like, hey, I ain't going. But she knows I'm going to get handicapped by the wall.
When you fall, she'll be the first one there to
Man,
pick you up.
straight up.
Yeah.
Straight up.
So, you know, I think you've just telling your story. You've had so many lessons. You know, you were telling me before we even started. There's things that you really want to share. I want to bring up that Facebook post that you brought up the other day when we were talking about.
Why are you going back to Facebook, man?
When you talk about athletes and how, you know, just opening their eyes more to things that are more beneficial for them.
But I got to tell a story behind that. Mm-hmm. After Weber State, I went back to rugby. Oh. That's my passion. Like, and I walk on the rugby field, I feel like I'm going to dominate anybody. That was my mentality, right? Because my brother Lassie, he's from the streets. My brother Willie played rugby. He did it, you know. And then I have another rugby mentor, Saman Siare. He played it out there. He was a very undersized dude, but he was a warrior. So like, oh, man, I want to be great in rugby. Invested my time, played some rugby, you know, and that's how BYU got a hold of me. Like, I called Coach Kaufusi. I said, hey, I left my scholarship. Can you watch me play rugby? I knew he was in the stands. I dominated. Langi, I dominated. Like, I get the ball, I'm going to score. I didn't care where I was. But if I wasn't going to score, I'm going to pass it on. Someone's going to score. That's where he seen it. And then Coach Kaufusi believed, like, hey, let's do it. You know what I mean? But the dream didn't happen at BYU. I got my associates. You know, coming back, I worked at USF Redaway driving forklifts. You know, and shout out to Coach Matic, and one of my best friends at Weber, Johnny Matic, because their dad, Johnny, I didn't have a job, and Johnny called me when I left my scholarship. He said, what are you going to do? I'm going to go Slick to get my associates. He said, where are you going to work? I don't know. Call my dad. He runs this trucking company. Langi, I went to work. I'd go to school, just clock in 4 hours. Today. Tomorrow I do 6. The next day I do 3. But I knew the owner. I knew the general manager. Because he knew I was going to school, I did my own hours. Got my associates, earning money. Walked on Lewis Powell, who's the D-line coach right now. Called him up. That's my cousin. Me and Lewis are blood related, but we went to school in side school. Don't side school.
Wow.
You know?
Small world, man.
Very small world. So he takes me up to Utah to Coach Witt and says, hey, man, this is my cousin Gita, man. He can play, Coach. Coach says, show up. Just get your associates and come in January. Like, when I walked on, that was Coach Urban Meyer's second year. So it goes back like mentors. He's one of them, okay, because he was the first coach I seen, like, the mental side of game, of football. Like, you don't believe in yourself, but I'm going to tell you, prepare and do everything possible. You're a beast, but you just don't know it. You know, long story short, I was one of the few at Utah to walk on in January. I earned my scholarship the same year in August. But the drive, like at the end of spring ball, I had a great spring ball. At the end of spring ball, they said, man, let's see if you can do it again. Broke down. I was like, oh, man, my wife and kids. And when I walked on in January, my father-in-law, you know, by the way, my wife, his name is Wina Mokofisi Afeaki, you know, by way of Nuku Nuku. Her mom's from Pereake. But the dad, he's a general contractor. He'd been doing it for 20 plus years. They flew down and they said, okay, I'll go football. My parents said, okay, because I didn't know about food stamps. I had no idea. But the support system was outstanding. To me, to get the scholarship in August after camp, it wasn't just me. Like, I had to fight for my kids. I had to prove to my wife that I'm a man, that I can go get this scholarship. You know, at the end of the day, I got it. I didn't make it to the NFL, but the U-Boy brotherhood, next to my kids, next to my wife, next to my family, the biggest thing that ever happened to me is the brotherhood. Chris Kemoeatu, Maake Kemoeatu, you know, Steve Fifita, Sean Pouha, Louis Powell, you know, then you go older, Kautai Olevao, okay, Lauvale Sape. Like, I'm naming Tongans, but there's hella Samoans. Ed Ta'amu, like guys that came back, like, and they were like the Trinity Brotherhood.
Yeah.
Times 10. That's all I can say. Like the Trinity Brotherhood times 10, because these are dudes that make it to the NFL. Maake made it to the NFL, came back, took everybody to Rodizio. All 20 of us. Then after that, we're drinking kava at the Grand America, at the Little America. Like, you talk about you making it and then pulling all your brothers to be like, hey man, this is how I'm living. I used to go to Pittsburgh. I went to Pittsburgh twice. Took my son the second time. When my brothers make it, we all make it. It's real. It's real. Don't even get me started with the U-Boy Brotherhood. Then it goes down to Star. Star came later. You know what I mean? But the network was huge. Life lessons were bigger, you know, but the brotherhood, lifetime.
Man. So you talked about, you know, Utah football, all the people kind of helped you along the way. How did you get into coaching then?
Man, I graduated 2005, and I forget to mention, and it's disrespectful, it's Coach Witt. My senior year, he became the head coach. So he bumps up. Coach Anderson becomes the DC/D-line. So like Coach Witt, like, he's a mentor, right? But after graduating in 2006, I left football bitter. I worked so hard to start my senior year, and I separated my shoulder. Third play into starting, and you work so hard to start, and we're playing Arizona, and my own teammate blew my shoulder out. Never was the same, but I was bitter, you know, the what ifs. What if I was healthy? What if I was thinking? But at the end of the day, was I good enough to make it to the league? No. But was I good enough to make it international rugby? Yes. But looking back, it was like, dang, should I played rugby? No, because this journey was supposed to be in football. It slingshot me straight into coaching. I get done in 2006. My mother-in-law gets diagnosed with cancer. And this was June of 2006. We moved to Reno, Nevada. That's where my wife's from. You know, shout out all my No-Town folks. Nothing but love for that place. That's my home now. Next to Rose Park, it's Reno, Nevada. That's where my wife's from, right? You know, just like you, I'm just playing. But we lived in Reno for 6 years. I was a correctional officer for 3 years. That was life-changing. When you don't like your job, like, I'm depressed, start getting inactive, like, I didn't like my job, but it was the life lessons from that, right? I learned how to respect people, treat them good. Like, no matter what the circumstances, you treat them good, but you got to mess with the scum of the earth, right? The kid touchers. They call them chomos and stuff. By the time I hit almost my third year, I could not deal with those guys because I had 7 girls. At that time, I had probably 5 girls. But I'm thinking, man, you do something to my kids, I'll end up in here too. You know, but I couldn't be professional anymore. Got out. And I was supposed to move to Tonga. I was lost, man. Like, I needed my father. I needed my mother to get me back to where I'm supposed to be. Like, that's what I could only think about was, that's my therapy is my mom and my dad, especially my dad. I needed to hear his soothing voice like, hey, son, tu'u nga awe, like, oh, foi. But my mom came back and said, son, if you come back to Tonga, man, you'd be a good Ikaretahi player. You'd be one of the best police officers over there, but you have to come back to America because your kids are still young. You need to find something that you love. Right when she said that, I was like, man, thank you, Mom. Let me go fast and pray about this. Me and my wife get on our knees and pray, and man, the answer was coaching. Called up Coach Anderson, went to Logan, packed up everything, pulled my retirement from Nevada. It's about 10 G's, paid off bills. Paid off bills to get ready for this move. Started my journey at Logan, Utah, man, 2012. Best experience ever. Because I jumped into summer camps, started coaching young kids, high school kids. One of the kids we have now that I coached at that thing was Mereke Tauteori. And I'm coaching this kid, and he's a monster, eh? And all I do is, I knew technique and stuff, but that, not too good, but just motivating a kid, eh? Yeah, come on, man, you from West Valley. This is what you do, huh? You supposed to dominate. He's like, yeah, coach. Play D-line, dominate. Play O-line, dominate. I'm like, man, this kid's a monster. But when someone believes in you, it's something else, you know? So that was 2012. That sparked my career to start, was Coach Anderson in Logan. Moved my family from Reno, Nevada. People were laughing at me. You know, my coworkers in the prison, they were like, a coach? I'm like, they had no idea my network. They had no idea, and they were laughing at me, right? But my bishop at that time, President Asi here in West Valley, he just told me, hey, I'll go. Because President Asi's out there, the guy too. Like, I had to process and to mess with people that knows my journey, that I know he's a monster. Like, but I'm a beast at that time. Just talking to him, and he was just the bishop, you know, a spiritual advisor, but as a fatherly advice too. Like, hey, alfatahape mo family otukwa wina nowhere. You gotta go with your wife and enjoy this journey together. But that's where it started, 2012 in Logan, Utah.
Man, that just comes back full circle. I think my freshman year, I think I might have been up there around that time, gray shirting before I left on my mission to Tonga.
What year was that?
It was the year, I think it was Chucky Keaton them's
Oh,
year.
geez, I was there.
Yeah.
I was there.
Yeah. I was just taking a few classes, and then after that fall semester, then I left on my mission right after
That's the year we beat Star and them.
that. Yeah.
So, like, oh man, pre-game, I'm telling Bo J. Filimoato and Al Abuajo, I'm prepping their brain. I said, hey, when we played at Utah, we'd go to BYU, walk on their field and own it pre-game. They lost the game. We'd walk on there and but I told them, okay, Star and them are going to walk through pregame. They're going to walk through and just big body everybody, right? And it was just like prepping them. You know, I had my nephew Dave Rolfe and them, like, they're straight all alpha dogs, but I had alpha dogs too. So I'm prepping Bo J and Al, like, hey, if they come and disrespect the Utah State, fuhumodo, because I'll stop it. But they don't beat us pregame. They're not going to take our field before that. And I remember, like, them walking up, Bo Jamer wasn't watching them the whole time. Star and the boys watching, but he's not going to disrespect people like that because he's a quiet monster. He will never come up and say, I'm going to eat you alive. But in his mind, he's saying that. He's going to smile, but he'll take your head off. Long story short, we beat him. Like, Bo J had a great game. You know, Al played his butt off. But it was like Coach Anderson instilled the belief in them that we had earned the right to beat them because we worked hard during 2 days. You know what I mean? So that was...
Man, I'll never forget the year before, I think you guys played OU in preseason, right? You guys lost the game 35-28, I want to say. Mm-hmm. You guys were up, I think, like most of the game. OU comes back in the last, like, 4 or 5 minutes of the game, takes the lead, and then you guys end up losing by a touchdown down in Oklahoma. And I remember they talked with Coach Anderson after the game, and he was saying they were asking, he's like, Utah State being such a small program, this is a moral victory for you guys. And
we don't.
And then Coach Anderson was like, we don't take anything as moral victories. It's like when you get into this level, it's wins or losses. And today we lost and we weren't good enough. Simple as that. It was like there's nothing to take that was good from this. We should have won today and we didn't. Shut the interview down, just went straight to the locker room.
Straight up.
And I think, my little brother is blessed now because he's up at Utah State. And I told him, I was like, hey, man, you got a real head coach up there who's about to get a hold of you. So
they're all, like, if you're a head coach, you're a CEO. You're running a $1 million corporation, but that's your job, right? That's to instill the belief, but you got to work towards it, and that's trusting the process, and it goes back to the post. Like, stop cutting corners. Like, us Polynesians, like, kakai ofa da dolo, kakai whakapaapa. Mahino beia, kakai whapiko da dolo. At the end of the day, man, if I can use COVID and figure out, like, man, I've been exposed, I'm going to get 2 weeks off. You're going to do it. It's just programmed like that. But we will always try to find loopholes. It's the same thing with work. Because the same guy that does that, like maybe a year, 2 years later, he goes to the workforce, he's going to do the same thing. And COVID comes back around, and it's still there. He's going to say that. I've been exposed around my cousin. Like, if you tell the work, maybe it's paid, maybe it's not. But you're just going to stay. But those are the bad habits you started in high school, in elementary. But the parents just let them do it. That's what I don't like. Like, why do we do that as parents? We're not supposed to be their friends, right? We're all fathers and husbands now, but maybe the younger generation thinks, man, my dad was too hard on me, man. I need to be their buddy. You're dead wrong. You're dead wrong.
You talked a little bit about, oftentimes in our community, we have so many kids with so much talent, but there's a lack of, commitment, doing things on time, just being honest, holding yourself to the standard of, if this is what greatness takes, I'm going to do whatever is possible to get there. What has been your experience with a lot of these kids, good and bad?
The good, man. Our Polynesian kids bring the family atmosphere. Sio mai kau uri up here, masi. Hame pehe kau tamagoe. Hame ko ke mahu inga me akai. The concept of food. Tau kai be do kau pau kai ga do kau uri. But that's what we did at Utah. I walked on, and like the Kemoatu brothers would pull everyone together to barbecue at Liberty Park. After a spring game, we're all tired. Hey, kau tam tau fetake paka. The Uriuris would say, hey, do you guys need us to bring anything? Nah, man, just bring yourself. They show up, there was food for days, drinks for days, and we're just hanging out. No alcohol. We're just hanging out. But the concept of the brotherhood, because the Palangis would come, Uriuris would come, that's why we won that championship. That's why we were the first PCS Busters. It wasn't the game. It wasn't tour days that year or whatever. It was part of the process, but we all got together and the brotherhood was formed by the players, not by the coaches. It wasn't forced, right? But the brotherhood, but they love, the Polynesian kids bring the family atmosphere, kakai ofa da dolo, without a doubt. But then the negative side is not being responsible, right? Not being held accountable. When I would punish a Polynesian kid, if they miss class, I rolled them. So I rolled them sideline to sideline. That's 100 yards. And you're dizzy and everything. Like, oh, man, that hurts. Maybe you're going to think about, if I miss class, I'm going to get rolled. I'm going to go roll, right? We had a meeting at Sac State. We're on the road in Sacramento. I was late to a meeting. I rolled myself. It was the message. I'm telling my players, if I'm going to roll you, I was late. But guess what? I was never late again, right? I was late today, 20 minutes. But I just came off family vacation. We came back, we're rushing back to take the rental. Like, I lost my wallet. My wife has to come get gas or whatever. But to me, my biggest thing is time. Don't mess with people's time. Biggest thing is time. And I learned that from my dad. I am never late to work. My 7 years, going on 7 years this year, I've been late 5 times. I can count them all. Because that's me taking pride in myself. I want to tell my players, they can't be late. Why am I going to be late? You know, but being accountable, you know, and just being honest. If you're going to tell me you're going to do something, do it. If I text you, Langi, they sent whatever, you got to finish that for camp. Yes, coach, I got it. You telling me you did it. But then all of a sudden tomorrow the list comes out that you didn't get it. Oh man, that irritates me. That's personal. That's an attack on me. That's why these kids don't understand, right? Like, we have academic meetings every other Thursday. But I have the list, guys. And guess who's on the list?
All the polys.
Straight up polys. Be in my shoes. Maybe the head coach thinks I can't control my guys. Maybe he thinks like, man, maybe I'm easy on them. I'm not. I'm doing everything possible behind closed doors that doesn't show up on the list. But they consistently do it. That was me telling the parents last Friday. I was sitting in a staff meeting and it hit me. Man, they need to know what they're doing is wrong. Like, stop babying our kids. Hold them responsible. You know, like, we sit and make fun of the Palangi people like, oh, ngawe na kaudeka in high school. Maybe that's why they're better than us. Because they're working and they have their own money and they're responsible. And you're teaching them life lessons. Like, you mess up, take their phone away. They mess up again, take their Xbox away. If they love it, take it away. Then they'll be like, okay, my son's Xbox, my father-in-law bought it. I refuse to buy him that. But it was his birthday or something. And instead of my father-in-law giving him $250, he went and bought him a game. And I said, son, take care of that with your life. Your father and your grandpa worked for that. He does general construction. That's a hard day's work. And when my son just barely came back from Tonga, go there to my older sister, que took my Xbox. He said, no, my grandpa bought it, but my dad won't buy me another one. Like, let that sink in.
That's just, you know, I think my little brother, I remember watching him whenever he was a freshman, sophomore. And, you know, whenever I went through those phases, I was just like, man, it was like, it took me nearly, you know, how long to kind of figure out. I was like, well, now it's too late. Like,
this is after your mission even?
Yeah. It's like, now it's too late. You can't play because you didn't get your grades together while you were at Utah State for that 1 year you were a freshman. Like, you didn't pay off all your fines and this and that, and time built up, and now you don't have the opportunity. That's all on you. 100% you live with that regret. And so I looked at my little brother, and my biggest thing was, you know, if I can't do this and I know he wants to achieve something, it's like, then I'm going to give him everything I have in terms of knowledge. And so
that's why you're supposed to do.
Yeah. And so it's been great to see that, you know, he's getting all the success. And I was just like, you know, it's like, it felt so good to see, like, dang, all these offers start coming in. He's not late to meetings anymore. He's working hard.
He came out of Alta, right?
Yeah.
What's his first name again?
Mata.
Oh, my God. Yes, he's long. He can run. He's athletic.
Yeah.
I know exactly who your brother. Now it hit me. Like, yes, Paula moved from Texas. Like, I know them all. But the years move so fast. Like, I'm like, man, what's his? It's the Hola kid from Alta. I remember him.
So for you, you know, you've coached a lot of these kids. How has it been for you being able to, you know, you play a huge role in mentorship and molding these kids' minds. What's the mindset like? How's that? Like, how does that help you get through your days? How does it?
I feel it's a calling. Like, in church, I've always been with the youth. It's a lifetime calling. right? To give back and serve the Lord through serving him in the youth, that's where blessings come from. But like, I can serve this and make money. Like, it's nothing. Like, what do they say? Like, if you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life or something. Right there, right? I don't know what that quote is, but it's true. With me, like, I worked Monday through Friday. Right when Friday got off, rented a van, we shot to Manti, taking my family, right? Like, if I'm mentoring these other kids, like, who's going to do it for mine? So I got to steal time. Because at the end of the day, like, goes back to your question, like, what, like, the mindset of coaching and everything. Like, the mindset is first father and husband. Coaching is I make money and I mentor, but I don't think about making money because for the first 4 years of my career, I made peanuts. So you're telling me you love it, but you're making no money. So like now I'm a little comfortable. Like I bought my wife a house last year. As a man, I'm like, hey man, I did it. But it's just not that. That's one of many houses I'm gonna buy for her. Wait, but my mentality is like, okay, I gotta be successful at home as a husband first. When I come home, it's about my wife. Because without her, then what's going on with the kids? So like, man, I've been married 20 years. Is it easy? No. Is it the first year that's hard? It's the first 5 years. Because I had to adjust to her. Like, whatever she wanted, I was like, okay, you're right. The hardest thing was to let go of my mom and make my wife first. That took me 5 years, right? Like, but making sure I'm a great husband at home, making sure I'm a good husband, making sure I spend a lot of time with my kids. Then when I handle that at home, work is nothing. Because the kids can't really tell me anything I've never been through. And if I haven't been through, then I call my brother. I call my other friends, like, hey man, like this scenario, like what do you think? Right? Like, even I need a coach. That's my wife. Like, they always ask, who's a coach's coach? That's my wife. That's my mom. That's my older brother. And then finally, like, the whole mental side of games, like, I finally found out, like, I need to talk to somebody else. And that's where my cousin Sam Lutui came out of, like, talking to Sam, like, Sam, man, like, I get stressed and stuff, and, like, man, my biggest thing is my temper. I can't control my temper because I coach hard, I love hard, and I got a bad temper. I know that. I got a bad temper, but I'm trying to control it. But going back to the question, just getting my mind right at home, then I come to work, make sure my boys know that I love and care for them. That's why my boys run through a wall. I tell them jump, they tell me how high, because I did it first. I can't tell them to jump without me. They got to see me jump. Then they're going to jump higher than me.
Man, that's awesome. I think one of my mission buddies was with you, Felipe Sitake.
That's my son. That's my son. Like Missio na Maka, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, mahinoia giau, ne fusaya bitini ngā whewhekau. Ko ose ngā whewhekau, I still got to deal with a temper. But that was a younger me. Os ko matano tautu. How ke pehe ai? Ko talatu ke tuku pe tuku. Ko tatu ke tuku e fuhu pe tuku. Because he loves so hard. Ka fuhu ataha di lai niu lere me bea li pea ta taha bea ta. And I told you guys. Ka whaha fuhu ai maa. Ka ko ripe ko ne ita pena u e tuki pe our own guys. Tau atu. Like anybody can get it. But man, that kid is a beautiful story. Because now he's going to make a lot of money. Because he went, like, football was all right. He started really good. Then he kind of backed off, got lost track. He lost track a little bit. Then he came back. And then there was a nose guard before him that went first team all conference. Played before him, so Felipe would relieve him. That guy was done, Felipe's senior year. He dominated. Became my second all conference guy, but Felipe was my first All-American.
Wow.
Right? It's not me. It's me tricking him. Not tricking, but making him believe that you're a monster. I told him from day one. Osmbego nga whewhekau Missio na Maka. Tangata. Ko koe. They ke whaia goa me wharifia. Telling him. He became my first All-American. I have a couple All-Americans now. Right? But it's not about football. Now he's successful. He's in a company doing sales. not married yet, I got to hook him up with one of my cousins. That's how much I love him. I got Hafakasi cousins and, you know, all that. I told him, I'm going to find you a wife because he'll take care of them. Love that kid.
Man, I remember on the mission, I think the last few weeks, may Osi out time going.
Yeah.
And then Felipe, man, humble kid. I just remember, oi wha'awhihui, eh?
Oh, yeah.
Man.
Kaya koreka poto.
Yeah.
Kaya koreka poto. Mahino le veka pak fehui, like he's thinking.
Yeah.
And there's some kids fehui for a lawyer, but not him. He's
Man, whihui, you know, ilo to everything. And then,
au ke lahi pe goia.
yeah.
Oh.
Alupe tala no be ospe. Like I heard from Whaiwhi Kau na Osi taimi goia. They go, man, Felipe, whamatala mai. And then I was listening to how, like, he was telling them how Felipe was teaching. I was like, hey, that's fine. I was like,
Look,
oh,
but everybody needs a mentor. You
Yeah.
had no idea that you
Yeah.
mentored him. But that's life. Like when I'm telling you something, this is not me speaking. This is Coach Hill speaking. This is Galani speaking. This is Steve Kaufusi speaking. This is Jason Kaufusi speaking. Like Jason, cousin of mine. But everything I learned as far as D-line play, organization, teaching, and everything, that was from Jason. He's a master teacher because he's smarter than me. But then I have to be smarter than him and learn. But at the end of the day, like, hey, it is what it is. He's smarter, but I just got to try. But someone mentored you to do this. And then we'll find someone that's going to mentor you to get on TV. That's what it is. Like, you know who Vaisi Kahema is, right? Mm-hmm. He's my second cousin, but he's my older brother, right? His mom and my mom are first cousins, but they were raised as sisters. So, like, I've needed help lately. I called him. He called me back in 5 minutes. We talked for an hour, right? Like, that's a man of God, but he's my brother. So I asked him, do I call you Elder Shikahema? Or do I call you brother? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
He said, man, I'm your brother first. But that's what I'm saying. Like, if you aspire to be something, there's somebody that's going to mentor you, and that's him. But he's going to have someone to talk to you, and because he's extremely busy, but he's going to help you. I know that. But at the end of the day, like if one of my 7 daughters want to be a doctor, you have an uncle 3 hours away. I'm going to take you. We're going to stay with him for 2 weeks. I'll be there too because I'm vacationing. But you're going to work, right? But one of my kids want to be an engineer. I have engineer friends, right? Like you always need a mentor.
Awesome, man. There's a lot in terms of our culture that we could cover. But if there's one thing that you would really want to emphasize, what would you say? Kids, this, just do this, and you've already talked about, committing, holding yourself accountable. But in terms of culture, what would you say especially for kids who are first generation Tongans here in the States?
I would say learn the language, but that's not realistic, right? For you to meet somebody and judge somebody that he's real Tongan, no. Like, the best qualities of a Tongan is the way he loves, the way he respects. For example, my relationship with my sisters. Growing up, I couldn't go into their rooms. Like, you couldn't watch TV in the same room as them. And you never understood why, but you do it. And then, like, fa'e tangata, right? The mother man. Like, I got 7 nieces in Hawaii, the Tonga sisters. That's my older sister's kids. And my biggest thing is I don't have enough money to spoil all 7 of them. Because culturally, they can slap my face. They can spit at me or whatever, because I take it. And when they ta'alunga, I sit on the floor. That's a sign of being submissive and humbled and showing my sister that I love her so much. Stuff like that is beautiful, right? But we can try to speak Tongan, maybe try to read Tongan books and everything, but that comes later. Just the way you love, the way you treat others. Right? Between you and I, there's a distance. But at the end of the day, like, how do I keep that distance closer and closer? Like, I just met you, But at the end of the day, after this, I'll talk to you maybe once a month or whatever. Hey, son, how's it going? But I don't have to text. I don't have to call you. I can text you. It's like, hey, man, I just saw episode number 8, number 9. It was awesome. I thought you hit some good points, you know. But that's the positive things we need to work on as a culture. Like, stop. What's that whole concept of, like, the crabs in the bowl and everyone's climbing up and falling? Like, why do we do that to each other? Why are you even concerned that people watching you? Like, growing up in Tonga, the word in my generation was kai mua. Like, to go kai mua. Meaning, like, man, you want to do stuff just because you're cool and whatever. But what's up with us? Like, we don't want to do it because maybe we're scared. But maybe you were bold enough to do it, but all your friends are pulling you back. Peer pressure. Don't worry about what people say. Like, go do it. At the end of the day, it's about my wife and my kids. Okay? Because I have to take care of my wife and my kids first. And then I'll take care of my mom. Because she's in Tonga. But like, Mom, let me pay all my bills. Then I'll get you $100. Out of my check, I get paid twice a month. But let me give you $100 to relieve the pressure of my sister Finau, who's still single. But financially, I'm able to do that now. Because I want my mom to be happy. But at the end of the day, my wife and kids come first. They're good. I pay the house, the bills and everything. Then I ask my wife, can I send $100 to my mom? Like, her seeing the way I treat my mom, how is she going to say no? But I have to love her first. You know, stuff like that. That's not cultural, but we kind of grew up seeing that. I grew up seeing my dad tell my mom, you're a beautiful lady. Because my mom is. But guess what? My dad, that's a handsome dude. But his brain was more, you know what I mean? And we grew up in a mixed family. My mom was married before. I have a brother, Danny. Hafkas Palang here. Then I have my dad. He was married before too, got a divorce. And I got 4 or 5 siblings. But with the way we were raised is my mom told us love everybody. Love your siblings. Even though I didn't give birth to them, but they're your siblings. Right? But that's like kind of, to me, when I think of culture, love, respect, tauhi vaha, fua kavenga, stuff like that.
Man, thank you.
Yep.
I think our time's coming close to an end here. Before we end, you know, I just want to say, you know, thank you. Yeah. We just barely talked Sunday and we're meeting Monday. So boom, right out of the cut, we're getting right to it. But I think in closing, man, it's been nice, you know. I stay with my in-laws and I don't really get to, you know, rea whakatonga. So this is nice to, you know, talk about my culture, ka rea. And I think the last thing, man, is like you can see your passion and, you know, you're going in the right way. So thank you. And
thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for the platform. Because at the end of the day, man, we've learned so much with our culture. We just need it. Like, that's why there's a lot of people paying to see, like, what are we doing special as Tongans and Samoans? Mm-hmm. This is it. It's God first. Family. Okay, but meaning with your family, it's my wife first and my mom. That was hard. Stuff like that. But at the end of the day, we're God-fearing people. I don't care what church you belong to, but he comes first. Everything else second.
All right, man. It's like grateful to have you on. It's like, well, go ahead and get out of these guys here.
All right.
Malo, man.
Yeah.